Awesome.
So we're now live. Welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We're meeting this morning for work sessions on a few bills. We'll start with introductions. I don't see Senator Libby with us, but I do see Senator Pouliot.
Hey, good morning. State Senator Matt Pouliot, represent Senate District 15, the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Bassboro.
Excellent. And Representative Bickford.
Good morning, Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn.
And Representative Carmichael.
Good morning. I'm Mickey Carmichael. I represent House District 137, which is in Hancock, Washington, Penobscot counties, 22 communities.
And Representative Collins, I think, will be with us shortly. I don't see him here at the moment. Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. I am Lori Gramlich, and I represent House District 13, soon to be House District 131, which is the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
All right, and Representative Hanley.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is the towns of Pittston, Alna, Wiscasset, and Randolph.
And I don't see Representative Stepkis here. Representative Matlock.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlock. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, South Thomaston, Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
All right, Representative Perry is not with us at the moment. And Representative Sachs has to be in another committee, so she may not be with us this morning. Representative Terry.
Good morning. I'm Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair. Good morning.
Good morning, and I'm Senator Ben Chipman. I represent Senate District 27, which is part of the city of Portland. We also have with us our committee analyst, Julie Jones, as well as our committee clerk, Lena Braun. And just at the very beginning, would like to just announce that we're not going to take up LD 1704. Yeah, 1704 is a bill we're not going to take up this morning. The sponsor would like some additional time to work on language for an amendment, but we will jump right into work sessions on the other three bills, unless you have anything, Representative Terry, we need to know about before we start.
No, I think we're good to go.
Do we receive any requests of taking them up in any particular order, or we're set just the way they're scheduled?
If we could have 428 start and the last one, I think we've already got on the schedule 1937. Those are the two chairs of the HCIFNS committee, so we can't take them both out at the same time.
Okay. So we just take them in the order they're listed then?
Yeah, looks like that'll do.
Okay, great. So we'll open up the work session on LD 428. This is an act to prevent tax haven abuse. We'll let Julie walk us through the analysis on this bill and we'll have discussion. I think you're on mute, Julie. Can't hear you.
Thank you. Unmuting, bringing up the chart.
All right.
Okay. LD 428 is Representative Tepler's bill, an act to prevent tax haven abuse, carried over from the first regular session, has not had any other discussion this year so far. This bill requires corporations that file unitary income tax returns in Maine to include income from certain specified jurisdictions outside the United States considered tax havens, to include in that income in net income when apportioning income among tax jurisdictions. The state tax assessor is required to adopt major substantive rules to determine the income or loss attributable to such corporations and to prevent double taxation or deduction of income. The assessor, state tax assessor, is also required to submit an annual report to the tax committee regarding whether jurisdiction should be added or deleted from the list of tax havens specified in the bill based upon specific criteria.
Okay. And do we have any other materials that were provided to us by the sponsor the sponsor?
It is my understanding that the sponsor and a group of people were working on a proposed amendment, but I believe that, I've lost my participants list, but I believe that Representative Tepler is in the attendee list and should probably answer that question.
Yeah, if we could bring her in. I'm not a
She
host
should-
here, so I can't.
She should be in right now.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, there, better. Now you can see.
great. Welcome, Representative Tepler.
Thank you very much, Senator Chipman and Representative Terry and distinguished members of my second favorite committee. I did want you to know that we are still working on an amendment, but I can give you some of the parameters of the amendment today. But I will ask you to hold off on voting just at least for another week or so. So here's some basic information about the amendment. It will not create any form of tax haven legislation immediately. What it will do is direct MRS to report back to this committee with a policy that switches Maine to worldwide combined reporting. And that would include also an election or a choice of Water's Edge with federal conformity provisions that we already accept, such as GILTI. And this addresses many of the concerns that you all had at the public hearing and MRS had at the public hearing. It avoids constitutional issues by singling out tax haven countries. It allows conformity to federal law to continue for businesses that elect Water's Edge reporting. And MRS's involvement in constructing the policy will ensure that the approach will account for all the technical concerns regarding definitions of income, nexus, factor relief, and other issues that they may need to define. And what is worldwide reporting? Well, worldwide reporting is policy that the federal government is currently considering, and we had held this bill in the hope that they would actually move forward on that, and it would just be a conformity issue. And that may yet happen, which is one reason why this is a good policy, because it will enable Maine to be ready if the federal government moves to worldwide reporting. And worldwide reporting recognizes the worldwide profits of a business and apportions by the percent of the business's sales that occur in our state. So if 1% of a business's worldwide sales occur in Maine, then that business would pay Maine corporate income taxes on 1% of their worldwide profit. And worldwide reporting has been upheld by the Supreme Court 3 times in 3 different cases. California uses publicly available financial statements from corporations reported on a worldwide basis. There isn't as much of a need for state auditors, and there isn't a need for auditors to travel to foreign countries to enforce this law, just a need to compare tax documents with publicly available data. The other issue is that there are big holes in GILTI. CBO and some researchers estimate that the GILTI international provisions capture only a quarter of profit shifting that occurs annually. And GILTI reform is being considered at the federal level, and that would help close some, but not all of the gap. 8 other states currently use worldwide combined reporting. So those are all of the issues that we're working through. And this, again, would not be a immediate creation of worldwide reporting, but rather asking MRS to formulate policy that works for Maine law. And then you will get that legislation in the next session.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for being with us and for that information. We have a couple hands up. I think Representative Bickford was first. Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Representative Tepler.
Morning, Bruce, Representative Bickford.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is this tax haven abuse bill has been coming to taxation committee that I know of for 10 years. Why are we still trying to flush it out and amend it? Shouldn't that work have already been done?
Thank you very much for the question, Representative Bickford. I think that over time, this has evolved. And what is going on at the federal level has certainly evolved. And our need to keep up with federal changes remains. It's something that has happened year after year when we do conformity. So this is prepping us also for potential conformity. And it's not like conformity is a one-time thing. We don't conform and then it's static. With any federal changes, we have to conform again. So worldwide reporting is the direction that seems to be taken right now. And it's definitely something the state should consider.
Okay, and then if you could please explain to me why, if a business does a certain amount of, or I should say makes a certain amount of profit in the state of Maine, why do we care what profit they make outside the state of Maine? Shouldn't they be paying tax just on the profit they make in the state of Maine?
They would be paying tax just on the percentage of the profit that they make in Maine.
So it sounds redundant then. If I make $20,000 in Maine and $80,000 in Massachusetts, aren't I going to pay tax on $80,000 in Massachusetts and $20,000 in Maine, rather than pay 80% to Massachusetts and 20% to Maine? Aren't I better off just saying, hey, here's what I made in Maine, here's what I owe you in taxes? Isn't that the simpler way to do it?
No, because what happens is there are certain countries around the world where companies make profits and hide them there. And we don't know what they're overall making. One way to avoid this, Bruce, is for them to pay their, I'm sorry, Representative Bickford, for them to pay their employees more upfront. And then they won't have those corporate taxes if they pay their employees more upfront. This is about profit, and profit that is being hidden from the state of Maine.
Allegedly hidden from the state of Maine. And just
I
remind
don't
me
think
now,
it's-
how many,
Representative Bickford, if we can just let Representative Terry ask a question, we can come back, but just, she's had her hand up for a little while. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
all right, I just had one other question, but I'll go. Yeah,
No, that's okay. Representative Bickford can
Okay,
finish up. That's
well, yeah.
totally okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Bickford.
okay, yeah, I guess my final question, if I can remember it now, was how many countries right now would this impact as so-called tax haven countries?
It doesn't impact countries because it's worldwide combined reporting. There's no specific country mentioned in the bill if it moves to that level. It has to do with the amount of profit that a corporation is making internationally.
Okay, so no country specific, so England, France.
No
Germany,
country
None of
specific.
those are, okay. All right, thanks.
Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, that question is one of the, or leads to my question for you, Representative Tepler. So I understand you're working on an amendment that pulls out the actual naming, a list essentially of countries and takes it to, whatever the company's full profits are. And then we get our regular apportionment. I think Representative Bickford had mentioned, why don't we do all of that sort of on a separate basis? And I think just the sheer volume of companies that are around the world that, do business around the world, I think would make for, I don't know, I'm not an accountant for sure, but I would imagine that would be quite an accounting nightmare. So we have this apportionment rule that's it's a federal thing, and it's, it helps MRS do their work. So Representative Tepler, my real question to you is, how long do you think you need to work on this amendment? I don't feel comfortable voting on anything without seeing the actual language. So because I'm trying to figure out the timing of things, can you give me an idea about how long you'll need to set everything up? Like a week, a couple of days? What are your thoughts?
My preference would be for 2 weeks, but if that's not okay for the committee, then 1 week will probably suffice.
I'm gonna go ahead and say 1 week, if possible, would be really super, super helpful for us. I'm hoping to be finished with our work in 2 weeks, right, everyone?
Or by the end of February.
Yeah.
Would be good.
And may I also answer one of Representative Bickford's questions that I didn't get an opportunity to answer, Senator?
Sure, go ahead.
So Representative Bickford asked me what the difference is between 20% of an apportionment that doesn't include worldwide reporting and 20% that does. And the difference is the total amount of profits that are earned around the world. We're taxing a percentage of the total profits of a business. That percentage is based on sales or business in Maine. And if we don't know the total amount of profits, then we can't tax our percent share.
Okay.
Appropriately, right.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Tepler. My question is, these companies that are doing businesses in other countries are abiding by the laws in them countries, right? Or presumably. So are we policing, that aspect of it? I mean, if they're paying the legal proportionment of tax for Maine, I guess I don't see the correlation of why we should be charging the Maine tax on income made in another country.
Well, Representative Carmichael, I think the question is what your policy goal is. Is your policy goal to assess a percentage tax on the total profits, or is your policy goal to allow companies to hide money from Maine government? This is a little different. It's not a question of forcing other countries to change their laws. Their laws can remain what they are. And in fact, we're not naming other countries. All we're doing is saying that if you're a company that does business in Maine and you earn a lot of money in a bunch of other countries, we want to know how much that is so that we can hopefully get a share of that to help control our infrastructure here, so we can build out broadband, so we can do the things that we need to do so that businesses can thrive here.
Okay. I guess, all right. I understand your answer. I can't agree with your philosophy, but I understand your answer. Thank you.
Representative Terry.
So I just want to let Representative Carmichael know it's not a philosophy. It's actually just how we do business. That's what the law is on how we collect corporate income tax from companies. Is we have this apportionment rule. That's sort of how all states collect corporate income tax. It's how most countries do the same thing. We have to, if a business does business in the state at all, then part of the profits, a percentage of that profit is how our calculations, it's just how we do calculations. I want to continue the conversation, but I also want to make sure that, never mind. Go ahead. I'll pull my hand down for now.
And Representative Carmichael, can I also say that this bill, as I am proposing it to be amended, will not change law.
Yeah.
It will request a policy update from Maine Revenue Services, and then this committee will make a decision about a change in law and the way we collect income tax. Corporate income tax, to be clear, corporate income tax.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'll just, it would be better for me if I could, I'll wait and see the amendment and then get clarifications at that time. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Tepler, I think I'm understanding it. You can correct me, please. I think this bill on the outside seems like it is going in with the assumption that all companies worldwide that do business in Maine are cheating Maine out of their rightful tax revenue and hiding money. Is that what the assumption is with this bill?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So
This
can you-
just creates a situation where anyone who is hiding profits has to report them. That doesn't mean that the vast majority of businesses aren't already reporting all of their profits worldwide. They very well might be. It's also just a different way of accounting. So rather than using GILTI like we do now and Water's Edge calculations, we would use a worldwide reporting calculation.
And
So-
did you tell me that a majority of the states do this now, or?
No,
very
I
few
told you that
states
eight states do this now.
Out of 50. Okay, thank you.
Yes, there are 50 states.
Yeah, very good.
Representative Terry.
I think I'm gonna make a motion to table this bill. I'd really love to see the language and how this is gonna work out.
Okay, just before someone seconds that, I just want to ask a quick question to Representative Tepler.
Oh, sorry, Senator.
Okay,
My apologies.
Representative Tepler, it's my understanding that you're modeling the amendment on something that Senator King is working on at the federal level. Is that the case?
That is correct, that is part of what's driving this amendment. Yes.
Okay, and you need a week, so we could schedule this for a week from now, and that would be enough time?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion from anybody? We had Representative Terry made a motion to table the bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Gramlich. That's not debatable. So all those in favor, please signify. Let us
All
know
set,
when you-
thank you.
Okay, and then all those opposed?
Thank you.
Everybody voted? Okay. So that motion prevails. So we'll now table LD 428. And we'll go into work session on LD 1406, not to encourage relocation to rural Maine.
Now I'm bringing up the chart. Okay. LD 1406, you said, right?
Yep, LD 1406.
This is Senator Stewart's bill, an act to encourage relocation in rural Maine. This bill creates a refundable income tax credit for up to 5 years for a person who relocates from a location that is not a rural area to a location that is a rural area in Maine. The credit would be equal to the lesser of the person's property tax bill in the rural area, or $2,000, plus the lesser of the person's internet connectivity expenses, or $1,000. The credit may be claimed for a total of 5 years. For a person who moves from outside a rural area to a residence within a rural area, which is defined by the bill as Aroostook County, Somerset County, Piscataquis County, and Washington County. The credit under the bill would begin with January 1st, 2022 tax years. This is also a carryover bill from last year. So if you were to go forward with it this year, you would probably want to change the dates. Maine Revenue Services has technical concerns and indicates several areas in the draft where clarification is needed. These were identified in their May 12th, 21 testimony at the public hearing on this bill. I believe that Senator Stewart was working on a possible amendment for this bill, but last time I looked, he was not here.
Has he sent you any language for an amendment?
Well, I worked on some language for him and sent it to him for his approval and have not heard back from him. So I don't know if I'm at liberty to release it to you or not.
Senator, I just texted Senator Stewart to see if he can join us, but Phoenix McLaughlin from DECD is here, and I believe that he and Senator Stewart have been chatting together. Perhaps we can bring him in.
Yeah, maybe we could bring in Mr. McLaughlin.
You should be in, yeah.
Phoenix, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I may have missed if there's a specific question.
Well, we just wait.
Tony.
Senator Stewart's not here, and understand you've been working on some language for an amendment. I think this is our maybe third work session on this bill between last year and this year. And do you have any language for an amendment? Our analyst said that she worked on something, but isn't able to release it. She hasn't heard from the sponsor.
I see. Yeah. Thanks, Senator. Julie would be more up to date than I am, actually. I did speak to Julie, but I have not spoken to Senator Stewart since then. So I would have to defer to her on that point.
Well, go ahead, Julie.
I think I tried to figure out how to describe this. What I had spoken with Senator Stewart about was he intended to propose that to replace the bill, instead of providing an income tax credit for relocation to a rural area, it would create a system under which DECD would be authorized to make grants of a similar nature to persons who move to a rural area. Beyond that, I think I would need his explicit okay to release it. He's probably okay, but I did not hear back from him on my email asking him if it was okay. Sorry about that.
So he's on his way.
Oh, good.
I guess there's some kind of big EUT thing happening this morning. The things you pay attention to when you're not in a different committee. So he's on his way over, I believe, if we can wait a minute, he can walk us through. Oh, actually, Lena, can you send him a link, please?
Yeah.
All right. Oh. Lena, I'm gonna put in the chat function Senator Stewart's home email. I guess it goes to his aide and then to him. Too many cooks. Oh, I sent that to everybody.
Okay. He should pop right on once he gets the link. Shouldn't have to take him anywhere else.
All right, he is joining us now.
Welcome, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for the technical chaos this morning.
We understand you have an amendment that you've been working on, and we haven't seen that. And do you have the language for that?
Good question for Julie. Julie, are you set to go to present that? If so, fire away.
Yes, I am. I just wasn't sure if it was okay to release it with you, but I do have it available to share, and I will bring that up now. Okay, it should be up there now. What this is doing is replacing the entirety of the bill. It would create a program under DECD in their statutes under Title V to provide that the department, meaning DECD, shall establish a program under which regional economic development organizations that serve areas located in rural regions of the state may provide grants to cover the cost of obtaining broadband services to individuals who've moved to the rural region in the state within the previous 12 months. And it would provide an appropriation of $100,000 to DECD to fund the grants that would be required under the amendment. I hope, Senator, that is correctly reflecting what your goals were.
It is. The one exception I would just make that we had talked about, and I don't think was covered here, is what rural is, because the definition there, if you go by what the federal definition is, would be overly broad. And I think we wanted to zero it down in scope to those 4 counties that we had identified previously, Aroostook, Washington, Piscataquis, and Somerset. And so that would be the only tweak, basically just strike the word rural, but incorporate those 4 counties. Outside of that, yes, that is consistent with what we had talked about.
Mr. McLaughlin can verify for me. I believe that in these sections of Title V, which are related to rural development, that there is a definition of rural areas as those actual same 4 counties that were in your bill. But I'll defer to Mr. McLaughlin to verify that.
Okay, thanks for the clarity there. Appreciate that.
Mr. McLaughlin, can you help us with the definition of rural?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So that particular section is a earlier piece of statute set up by a bill last year from Senator Stewart. That's a rural workforce recruitment and retention grant program, and it defines for the purpose of the section, that rural region to the state mean those 4 counties that the senator referenced.
If somebody's in New Vineyard, which is Franklin County, or Leamington and York County, or other small, what I think most people would agree are rural areas, but they're not in those 4 counties, they're not going to be able to qualify for anything under this.
Is that a question for myself or Senator?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for you maybe. I mean, it sounds like if it's only going to be 4 counties, then I mean, I think all 16 counties have certain rural areas within them, so this will only cover anything within the 4. So if someone is just over a county line from Somerset into Franklin and they're in New Vineyard, and they want to get some assistance to relocate there and maybe start a business, they'd be out of luck.
That's correct. The way it's set up, it defines it as the counties, those 4 counties.
Representative Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to make sure that the intent of this is that there is an incentive program to move to northern rural Maine. It is the intent of this is not to focus on rural counties, but to draw people to northern Maine. Senator Stewart, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, that is correct. And it is meant in tandem to pair with another initiative that's going on that you just heard Mr. McLaughlin talk about. And those rules will be hopefully out within the next month, so long as things don't get off track there. And so there's a reason for why it's those 4 counties. It's not meant to be particularly exclusionary, but at the same time, I'm hoping that if this program, yields some fruit, we could then scale it up and find other ways to incorporate other parts of the state. These are just the ones that have made most sense to start with. When I spoke with DEC last year, and were sort of the priority counties because of the issues with workforce and population growth they're having.
Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senator Stewart. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. My question is, I guess trying to understand this, is it the goal of this to bring individuals to these counties to build a workforce, or is it to allow people that maybe they're retired and they want to move next to Eagle Lake or Moosehead Lake or whatever and have a nice home there? And according to this bill, they could probably do that and get their internet set up, paid for, property taxes forgiven, but really not contribute anything. And I just want to clarify what this is intended to do.
Sure. So thanks for the question, Representative. So first off, I want to make sure that we're talking about what the amendment is, because that's what's in front of the committee, and it doesn't have anything to do with the property tax provision. We decided to pare that down to really just zero in on this one benefit. Biggest reason behind that being that it's going to be a lift to get it off the appropriations table. And that the broader it is, the more it's going to be, the harder it is. So again, this is a tool to have in the tool belt for these workforce recruiters who are going to be starting their work later this year. This is a flaw, I think, in the legislative process, that everything's so siloed. I wish that this committee could have been in the IDEA committee when that bill was going through, so that you had a better sense of what that is about. And actually, Phoenix, I believe, or Mr. McLaughlin is working on the rules right now for where his department is anyways, to get that program out the door. This is meant to be a tool in the tool belt of those folks. Certainly, if your scenario plays out and there is a senior individual or couple that decides to relocate to one of these 4 counties, they could tap into it, but it's going to be administered through the folks in the agency that is doing this workforce work. So in order to access these funds, they need to work with these recruiters pretty much on a one-to-one basis in order to tap into those funds. So while it's certainly possible, it's not likely that you'll see that scenario where retirees are relocating because they love Aroostook County, and I don't blame them for that. But it's unlikely that they would be tapping into this and that would be the reason that they're moving to Aroostook County, but it's really going to be geared more towards that working family demographic.
Thank you. And I apologize for missing that part of the amendment, but thank you for that explanation. It was helpful.
No problem.
Go ahead, Representative Collins.
Oh, thank you, Senator Chipman. Good morning, Senator Stewart. Just to be clear here, this what we're going to be voting on is the fund's only going to be 100,000, and it would be 1,000 per family or household, individual, whatever. So this base, what I'm guessing is that, and we've had a few discussions about this in the past couple of years, so I'm trying to refresh everything, but this is just to kind of test the waters to see if it works. And then if it is, the hope is to do more, right? Because I've seen it, for example, when Representative Terry talked about Vermont, I know when they did something, I think it was 7,500 to 10,000. And I think almost instantly they got 300 people that came to Vermont under this program. So I think it could work. And I like the idea. I frankly think it's such a small amount. I wish it could be more, but if it just gets the process going, I think we should do it. And I do realize after we got the last delayed census numbers, if we're talking about, rural northern Maine, I mean, Aroostook County by far had the greatest population loss, and which is a trend that's gone on since potato farms went under and closed down Loring Air Force Base. So I do understand that unique challenge, and I hope we can do this. And again, I really think like we should be putting tens of millions into this if it works. Like if it works how it does in Vermont and other places, like we can get hundreds of people there instantly. I think we should do all we can to incentivize this. So but that's what the goal is, right? Just to kind of like a pilot to test it, see if it works before going further.
Thanks, Representative. Yes, that's pretty much the game plan here, is to make sure that we can get something delivered to folks out the door this year. That way, hopefully when we're crafting a budget in, about a year from now, we'll have some data to present to justify the ongoing continuance and hopefully the scaling up of this program. I mean, it's effectively what we're talking about is 100 families, right? At 1,000 per each. So that would be a huge, don't get me wrong, that would be a huge shot in the arm for these places, right? And I can think of plenty of communities across those 4 counties that if you dropped in 10 families there, that would be a huge shot in the arm for their school districts, for their tax base, for their employers, you name it, right? But hopefully we can prove that with this and then scale it up beyond that 100 family cap effectively.
Representative Carmack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senator Stewart. My question would be, once we move these families there, is there an identified work shortage? You can't just ask people to move in and then sanitize it if we're not building the business to support these families once they get there.
Thanks, Representative. So again, the initiative that's going to be going live here in about a month in those 4 counties is effectively going to be recruiting and targeting individuals to move to these 4 counties. And a part of that is going to be making sure that they have a job before they get here. Making sure that they've been connected with a realtor to pick out a property to purchase, making sure that they've got their kids enrolled in the school district they want to send them to, and the like, right? Identifying civic groups to engage with and whatnot. again, I wish that this committee could have been involved in that other effort. That would have made this so much easier. Unfortunately, we're just sort of having to update you folks on that effort. But it is going to be, at least in my conversations with the department, those RFPs are going out within a month. And then that work is going to begin. And so it would be super awesome if we could say that in addition to some things like the Opportunity Maine tax credit, we also have this other program which folks can apply for and take advantage of through these recruiters who are doing that work. So there's a ton of other stuff that's going on. But again, this is just another tool to add to their tool belt in making the pitch to come and live in rural parts of our state.
Thank you.
Additional questions from members of the committee? So Senator Stewart, so it sounds like it's $100,000 per family. So that's 100 families. What happens if more than 100 families apply or want funds? If there's 125 families, those additional 25 families, who determines which ones get the money and which ones don't? I mean, how is that determined?
Yeah, it'd be first in, first out, Mr. Chair. So whoever the first 100 of the year are going to effectively be able to tap into it. I think that'd be a good problem to have, right? Because in about a year, we're going to be creating a new budget. And if we have that data readily available to us, we can present that to the legislature at that time and create a pretty compelling case for why it makes sense to scale up that program and make sure that we are effectively competing with other states, particularly our neighboring ones like Vermont, because that's going to be where the next battle is between the states. It's going to be for people. It's not going to be for businesses as much, I don't think, but it's going to be for the people to work in those businesses and to keep that state's economy rolling. So I hope that scenario plays out, frankly, because that would be a good outcome, I think.
So it's the first 100 that apply, and so the 101st family that applies would, be denied. So this is the first 100 starting when the program opens up at the beginning of the year, and by the time it gets into February or March or whenever that reaches that 100, anybody after that the rest of the year wouldn't be able to get anything until the next year if it's renewed. But I mean, I just got other questions about this. I know there's some other hands up, but I can come back, I guess, some other questions that I had about it, just in terms of how it's going to work. But I do have some concern about the logistics of it and what Representative Bickford had raised as a point. I mean, some people are going to move to rural Maine anyway, and some people would be enticed by this. And so how do we know that the money that we're giving out to families is going to families that wouldn't otherwise have moved there anyway? I mean, in other words, if there's not a job for them, if there's no broadband in that area, if there aren't other things there, they're not likely to move there. But if we give them $1,000, maybe it helps them get those things. But there are some people moving to rural Maine anyway, as we know. And as I talked about during the last work session on this bill, there's approximately 100 families that have moved to Caribou in the last year based on school enrollment anyway, without anything like this. And so some of that's happening, and there's certainly definitely more that needs to happen in some more rural areas other than Caribou, other rural towns in Aroostook County and these other counties. But how do we know that the people that are going to get the money are people that wouldn't otherwise be moving there anyway? I guess is my question.
So as I mentioned with Representative Bickford, the way that the program is now going to be set up, the entity that those folks would be applying to this group, to this grant through, is the same entity that's going to be doing the workforce recruiting, that's pulling people here, right? And it's making the pitch to them, the deliberate effort that's going on. So it's not as if they're going to be able to tap into it if they just sort of pop in. They're going to have to work with somebody at that agency on a one-to-one basis in order to do it, by the way that this grant is set up. And so it's certainly likely, or possible, I should say, that scenario where somebody just moves to Caribou, decides to walk into, for instance, the Northern Maine Development Commission in Caribou and say, hi, I'm here to apply for this grant, except that that's probably not going to be the case, right? I mean, I think what certainly will be the case is that those folks that are doing the workforce recruiting are going to be working one-on-one with the people that they're targeting and helping them fill out that grant. right? Helping them to make sure that as a part of the whole package that they're, when they relocate, that's a piece that's baked into it. The average person that just, relocates to Maine for retirement or outside of that program, and that might happen. We saw a blip, and again, we talked about this at the public hearing or the other work session, right, Mr. Chair? We did see a little bit of a blip in at least one neighborhood in Caribou because of COVID, right? But whether that is long-term or not is something that, I think exists. That's a problem that exists independent of COVID, and we need to be thoughtful and planning for in the long run, irrespective of that. In fact, on last Friday, I had a conversation with the folks at the Aroostook Partnership, and I brought that point up, right, that you would raise this concern, and they said, whoa, no. This and their number one priority is population growth and workforce growth. They know that this is not something that is even close to being solved yet in terms of a problem that we're facing up here, and indeed across all of rural Maine. But so I hope that answers your question, both on the technical side in terms of who's going to be applying for it by and large, as well as the fact that there is certainly still a very big population problem up here.
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie had her hand up, and I'm going to let her go first, and then.
Go ahead, Julie.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The discussion reminded me I did have a question. If this proposal is to move forward, I would need to know whether the appropriation is intended to be 1 year only or whether it's meant to be ongoing, and with it going into the budget, the next biennial budget, whether it would automatically roll over into that as well and show up as an appropriation, or whether it would just be for FY23. Sorry to interrupt.
Do you have a response to that, Senator Stewart?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Consistent with what we've talked about today, I think it makes sense to keep it ongoing for now. Of course, the next legislature, the next governor, or the same governor, however it all shakes out, right, can determine whether they want to include that in their proposal or not. That's a prerogative that they're going to have when they present their budget, and a prerogative that the next legislature is going to have to determine whether or not to keep it or add it or adjust it or whatever. But I would say as a baseline, yes, to keep it going forward.
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the amendment I heard, and I also like the idea of the ongoing. I'm going to make a motion ought to pass as amended and as amended with ongoing also.
Second.
Second.
So a motion ought to pass as amended, made by Representative Bickford, seconded by Representative Terry. Go ahead, Representative Terry.
That was it. I was going to make a motion. Representative Bickford beat me to it.
Further questions or discussion from committee members? So I've got some concerns about the bill. I'm not sure I'm going to vote for it today, Senator Stewart. I think, definitely people are moving to rural Maine, not to the numbers that we need to see to have things be as well as we'd like them to be there in the economies of some of these small towns. But I think some of that is happening already, and I don't think that the $1,000 is going to make that much of a difference for people. In other words, the people that are going to move to rural Maine are doing that because they can work remotely now, or they've got a job opportunity there, or they've got family there, or they want to retire there, or for whatever reasons they're moving there. I'm not sure $1,000 is going to make that much of a difference. And I don't like the idea of excluding 12 counties and only having it be 4 counties. There's certainly rural parts of all of our counties. Franklin County should be there. Oxford County should be there, definitely. They're not part of this, and they need help too. And I think that they should be included as well, not just limiting it to the 4. And I know it's only 100 families a year, but we should give families in those counties the same opportunity to have a shot at this, as if it's going to be effective and actually is going to draw people to rural Maine. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to entice many people that wouldn't otherwise already move there. But if it does, I'd like to be able to include families from other rural counties and not just those 4. Representative Matlack.
Thank you, Senator Chipman. I just wanted to say that I will be supporting this bill. As Senator Stewart mentioned, this is the beginning. This is how we test it and how we see whether or not it works. And if it works up in those 4 counties, and those 4 counties are well known for working together and trying to resolve their own issues and being a close-knit group that will support one another. I think that this is an opportunity to encourage people to move to Northern Maine. And if it works there, then in a couple of years, we can spread it to other counties where it might also be of assistance in getting younger folks to move back to the state of Maine.
Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to echo what Representative Matlack said, and just maybe push the point one more time that this particular grant matches with a group with a particular recruiting tool for those 4 counties. The other counties are not part of that recruitment tool. Hopefully, I think that something like this is a great tool to encourage folks to move to Maine in general. And I'm hopeful that this program, along with the grant, is a huge success and can be spread out over those other counties that are also struggling to keep their populations up. Just sort of anecdotally, I've worked with a group here in Gorham that recruits military folks from all over the country without financial incentive. But with all of the same key ingredients that this group uses as recruitment tools, jobs, housing, schools, getting folks ready before they move here. I think it's a great program, and this particular military program that I've been working with has seen a tremendous amount of growth over the past couple of years. Just for getting those folks to Maine. I think that once people get here, they'll be very excited to stay and raise their families here and continue with generations. And I believe that it's going to be a successful program, and this grant money will help it along, one more step. So I'm very excited about it. I'm thankful that Senator Stewart brought this to us.
Representative Collins.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Senator Chipman. Before we vote, I just wanted to reiterate my support. I supported this bill, and part of the reason is I've seen it's been successful in other states, and I think if we test it out, that will hold here. This is something that I think you're going to find more common in other states. It's happening around the world. Lots of countries, provinces or states within countries are deploying these sort of incentives. And I just want to remind the committee voting today that often in the legislature, every community, every county has unique circumstances, and we all do our best to help those counties or regions. Sometimes it may not directly go towards every part of the state, but we see unique challenges, and there are unique challenges in these counties, and the people for years have been asking for the legislature to do certain things. This is part of a package. I know we haven't seen it all because some of it's in other committees, but I think it will be successful. And I kind of sadly wish it could be a lot more, because if it's worked in some other rural states in New England, I think it could work here. And just talking about unique circumstances, specifically in Aroostook County, for every person that comes there, and for every person that moved to Aroostook County in the last year, 2,800 people left. So it is a huge issue, and I think that it makes sense that we have targeted approaches and do things kind of with data. But to Representative Matlack's point, if this can work well in these areas, then I'm all for in the future us expanding it and having it work everywhere in the state, even where the rural characteristics aren't quite as challenging as the areas where the people are asking us to assist them. Thank you.
I just have a couple other questions, Senator Stewart. do people have to move from out of state to these 4 counties, or can they move from another part of Maine to these 4 counties?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To confirm, the intent is that they're moving from out of state into state. I just want to make sure that's consistent. Julie's nodding her head. That is consistent with the language in the amendment. Yes.
So they can't move from southern Maine to Aroostook County and benefit. I mean, why wouldn't we allow someone to move from Portland to Aroostook County and bring a business or a family there?
So again, the other program is geared towards recruiting folks outside of the state to come and relocate into Maine. And so this pairs with that program. I'm not suggesting it's, believe me, I'd love to have more of your constituents up in my neck of the woods, Mr. Chair. So if they want to do that, I'm all for it. But again, for this sort of pilot instance, it's meant to pair with that other program, and hopefully it goes really well and we can expand it in other ways.
So it's from out of state, so they'd confirm that they live somewhere out of state and that they wouldn't be able to be from southern Maine to northern Maine. And then the other question is, how long would they have to live there to get the $1,000? Would there be some period of time they're required to stay there, or would they be able to move there and get the credit and leave the next year and go back to somewhere else?
So if they decided to relocate up here, I mean, it'd be each year that they're here for up to 5 years. And Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not the case in the language now. I want to make sure this is the first time I've actually seen the language in the amendment. So if they move, they lose the credit. It's that simple. So if they stay, they get the credit. If they don't get it. But again, if it really isn't a good fit for them, and they feel compelled to move elsewhere, then that's their choice to make. I'm not saying that rural living is right for everybody, but for those that do decide to relocate here and bring their families with them, we want to make sure that we're competing in that space.
So they get the $1,000 each year for up to 5 years. Who makes sure they're still living there? I mean, how do we know that they are still there? I mean, who confirms that?
Well, again, that'd be administered through the local entity that's working with these folks. So if they're not, then there's a reason why we chose the local groups, not just because they're already going to be doing this work on the recruitment side, but because of that exact fact that it is more of a local question. And if somebody moved back to New Jersey after they moved up here, the local group is going to know that. So I don't suspect that that's going to be a problem.
Maybe Phoenix, if you don't mind. So you're going to be administering this. I mean, who are you guys going to be able to know where the people are there and that they stay there for a certain period of time, or how would that work? Knowing that they're going to be there year after year and that they stay for the full year before they get the money.
Thanks. DECD would not administer the individual grants. It would be subgranted to the relevant economic development district. So NMDC, EMDC, Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, they would do that kind of individual grant review and processing that type of work. DECD would be involved with the rulemaking, and I could imagine there might be ways to clarify in that process how that type of thing would be verified. But at the end of the day, it would be up to those local economic development districts to do that type of verification.
Okay. Julie, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. Senator Stewart was looking for verification on the grant running for 5 years. I did not catch that when I drafted this amendment, so it will need to be changed to include 5 years. As the way it reads right now, I think it would only provide a grant for the first year that they have moved to the rural area. So it will need to be changed to include it lasting for 5 years. Sorry about that. I didn't understand that intent.
No problem. That was probably, so the original bill had that 5-year language, and I think it just didn't get carried over into this. Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Julie.
Go ahead, Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Stewart, for bringing this bill forward. I know I've said this before and I've told you privately, and I'll say it again, I am in full support of this. I think it's really critically important that we really look at what's happening in our more northern counties in the state that have been long oppressed. I used to work up in Aroostook in Washington County, so I have seen firsthand the mass migration of folks leaving those areas. My question is, and I think Julie might have answered it. I know we talked about this being a pilot program, which I, again, am full support of. Is that so given that we are coupling this with the grant initiative and we're kind of in congruence with all of that, would this be a 5-year pilot program, or just maybe, it's not going to change my vote. It piqued my interest when we started talking about that. And I'm just kind of curious, how long will this be? Because for 2 reasons. One, I'm simply curious, but secondarily, I can see this being a really wonderful launching pad to replicate throughout the state if it's successful.
Thank you, Representative, and I certainly appreciate the support. So the 5 years is a cap, so it'd be for not more than 5 years that they could consecutively get this. But again, if the legislature next year decides that they're done with the program in the budgeting process, then that would sort of make it a moot point. But, you know, again, if it goes on for 5 years at least, then those folks could tap into it and access it that way. And I am hoping that we can scale it up, right? I'm hoping that we prove of concept in the first year. And then the next year we, make it $1 million fund, and that's 1,000 families that are benefiting from it, right? And we can look at expanding into other counties as well. But we really got to get some paint on the target before we can do that. And so that's why I think, the 5-year bit is kind of aspirational because it's assuming it's going to be there for 5 years. I don't know if it will be or not. I don't have a crystal ball I can look into, but the original language of the bill was just to say for the first 5 years, again, under the original language, it included the property tax offset credit as well as the broadband credit. For 5 years that would exist, but we've pared it down and pared it down and pared it down to this to try to account for the fact that it's going to be tough to get something off the appropriations table, right? And we need to try to figure that out and bake it into the process here. So, I wish it could be more. Maybe it can be, who knows? If we get to the end and there's more money left than what we anticipated, then we can maybe have a conversation about expanding it beyond 100,000. But I suspect that, it's going to be tricky to do that, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it did. And again, I mean, I know every time we send something to the appropriations table, we all get some trepidation about what that's going to look like. I've got a few priorities there myself. However, I'll look forward to working with you in anticipation of this passing out of our committee and through the legislature once it gets to the table, Senator Stewart, because I think it's really important that, particularly, I live in York County, and I've said, as Senator Chipman has also said, that there are rural parts of our state within even York County and in southern Maine. However, I would venture to say that the northern part of our state has been much more impacted in more recent years by the financial hardships that the southern part of the state just really has not seen. So again, I'm pleased that you brought this forward. I'm happy to partner with you on it and look forward to voting for this.
Julie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, your discussion has generated another issue that I just need to know for purposes of the appropriation. If the grant of $1,000 per eligible applicant lasts for 5 years. In the first year, $100,000 would support 100 grants. In the second year, there's also going to be those same 100 people, assuming they don't move away, being eligible. So if you want to let 100 new people in the second year, you would need to have $2,000 in the second year, and the third year, $3,000, until you got to $500,000 in the fifth year, if you were going to let 100 new people in each year. Just wanted to mention that we have some income tax credits that are like that for new doctors and dentists in the state that have that same aspect of increasing each year in order to let new people in. And it sounds like that's the intent. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. You don't really need to do anything. You're only appropriating in this bill for the second year of the biennium, but to provide that the program does provide for new people being eligible each year for 5 years, then that the cost would go up each year as a result of that.
Is that your intent, Senator Stewart?
Yeah, again, the first year is about proving proof of concept, right? And so if it works, then Julie is correct. It probably will cost more. If we've expended 100% of the funds, and in theory, that work's not done yet, right? They're going to continue to recruit more, and it will cost more if it's working. If it's not working, then again, that the legislature is going to have to decide what they want to do with the fund in the out years. We won't be able to control that even if we wanted to. And the governor's office and the department and all these folks are going to get together in about a year and, present a new proposal. And hopefully this is included in it. And again, if we can prove that proof of concept here, it probably will be. If unfortunately we can't, then I suspect they might take a different route. But yes, Julie, your assumption is that it'll get more expensive over time, which hopefully that's the case, because that means that we're doing our job on the recruitment front.
Yeah, it means a bigger fiscal note going out 5 years, right? So, go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to amend the bill with the language that Julie just brought up and Senator Stewart just agreed to. And also, when I made the motion, I forgot to offer the amendment of the fiscal note. So,
Mr. Chair, if I can ask a question to Julie real quick about that.
Sure, go ahead, Senator Stewart.
Julie, is my understanding that a fiscal note incorporates what the current fiscal impact is, right? So it would be for this biennium, and effectively that's where we'd have to find the money off the appropriations table, not for those out years, correct?
The second part of your sentence is correct. You would only need to, the legislature will only need to find the funding for the second year of this biennium. And the first part, however, the fiscal note itself will indicate the 2 years of the next biennium. So it will just indicate for information purposes only that the cost would be X amount for FY24 and FY25.
Go ahead, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been ready to vote on this for a while. I think everyone else is asking questions, so I'll ask a quick one. I think, Senator, you said after the hurricane, the Aroostook County sent a delegation down to Florida to try and recruit people who may have been displaced. Did you find that you were outmatched by other states and what they had to offer?
Yeah, other states. That's a great question, Representative, because that's a good case study of how the other states are competing already. And we had, and that was the impetus behind this other initiative, right? The one that was more sort of a formalized recruitment process and structure, and having somebody whose full-time job it was to go out and do that work, because other states are doing it. And so we were getting beat all the time in those conversations, because we basically had a volunteer, who went down. It's not their job, it's not, they're just there to sort of spend a weekend in Florida and try to have as many conversations with folks about living in Maine, but they didn't have job packages ready. They didn't have housing, opportunities ready to present and showcase and highlight. They didn't have school district, it was just sort of a very informal thing. But everybody else had, a really nice presentation and a good showcasing of, well, come to Minnesota, right? Or come to Vermont, or come to Georgia, or come to Alabama, or wherever. And so you're exactly correct that Maine, or at least the folks that went down, and I don't know of anybody else that went down from Maine, really missed the boat there, because it would have been a really solid opportunity to have something put together, formally and ready to go out the door. But it takes a lot of work.
I just feel like we've got Live and Work in Maine. We've done Senator Pouliot and a bunch of people have done great work on the college tax credit. We're looking at this. I think it would be an overwhelming success if we could attract 100 people, and we will all be in favor of expanding it. So I think I'm ready to vote just to get it done, and I suspect it will. If it's working, if it's not working, there's enough money. If it's working, we'll want to expand it, and it'll eventually be a staple in the governor's budget. So thanks for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate the support.
Any additional committee discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify.
Mute. Thank you.
All those opposed? So that motion carries. To pass as amended. So we'll close the work session on LD 1406, and we'll go into work session on our final bill. Go ahead.
Is the minority ought not to pass?
Yes.
Thank you.
And so we'll go into work session now on our final bill today, which is LD 1937, an act to clarify the exemption from income tax and tax withholding tax liability for certain out-of-state suppliers of spirits purchased by the Bureau of Alcohol, Beverages, and Lottery Operations.
Okay, this is Representative Lucchini's bill presented by Senator Sanborn. The bill in its title appears to be providing an exemption from income tax and withholding tax liability for certain out-of-state suppliers of spirits. It has a mixture of provisions in it, some of which are describing themselves as an income tax exemption, and some of them are describing themselves as the determination of whether certain out-of-state manufacturers of spirits have nexus with the state of Maine for purposes of Maine being able to impose an income tax on them. Maine Revenue Services raised a number of concerns at the public hearing, and they have in fact submitted some language that they would like to see changed in the bill, which I think is oriented more towards providing an income tax exemption in these instances rather than describing it as a way to calculate nexus. Mr. D'Alessandro is here, I believe, from Maine Revenue Services, who could probably speak, certainly speak better than I can with regard to their concerns with regard to the nexus issues.
Okay, great. Maybe we can have them come into the. You want to keep going, Julie, or?
Well, I just realized I hadn't pulled up the correct part on the chart. I know when you have people speaking, it's better to not have the chart up there. So maybe it's better if I take it down. If you don't want me to take it down, holler now.
I guess it's okay to take it down if we can go into discussion and maybe have someone from Maine Revenue Services. Looks like we have Mr. D'Alessandro with us, who can speak to their concerns. I guess Representative D'Alessandro, welcome.
Thank you, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry. My name is Daniel D'Alessandro. I'm Associate Tax Policy Counsel from the Office of Tax Policy. Like I said at the public hearing, the administration does oppose this bill. This bill, as Julie said, does kind of go back and forth between talking about creating an income tax exemption and affecting the federal nexus requirements. We would suggest that if you do move forward with this bill, that you change the bill title to make sure that it's not talking about clarifying federal nexus requirements, but really limited to talking about creating the new income tax exemption that the bill would create. We spoke in opposition to this bill because it creates kind of a new and unique income tax exemption that's not available to other industries and would put these out-of-state liquor companies at a competitive advantage over their in-state liquor companies that they can compete with. There are a number of out-of-state liquor companies that ship liquor into the state. And in the past, Maine Revenue Services has not had to look at all the different kinds of connections that those liquor companies have with the state, because the property that they own in the state is sufficient for federal nexus and Public Law 86-272 purposes. If this bill were enacted, taxpayers and Maine Revenue Services would have to look at those connections and determine whether they are, whether they would fit within this bill, and so they would be exempt from tax, or whether they wouldn't fit within this bill, would have to continue paying tax. And that would be a taxpayer by taxpayer determination. It would be factually intensive, and some would pay tax and some would not. You heard.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Terry has a question.
Yeah, doesn't that happen already?
Well, it does in most industries, but because these taxpayers own property in the state through the bailment process that you heard described, that property by itself is sufficient to create nexus and to exceed the Public Law 86-272.
But if they didn't have bailment, they would not in fact own property in the state.
Well, so that would be the question. And we would have to look at each taxpayer to see whether that is true or not. Some of them likely would.
But that's not all, that has to already be happening then.
Well, it does.
In order to determine that that any particular company gets taxed, you would have to determine on a business by business basis.
So for most industries, that is true. We would have to look at their specifically what connections they have with the state, whether it's property or other connections. In this industry, they do have property here. And so that generally answers that question.
But because we require that.
Yes.
Yes. So
I think,
wouldn't have it here if we didn't require the bailment process.
Well, some of them would and some of them wouldn't. I just want to point out that there would be a factual determination that would have to be met. Some of them would fit within this bill, only having property here because of bailment. Some of them would have other connections with the state and would remain liable for tax. Some would and some would not.
Representative Perry has a question, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm a bit confused about this bill, and I thought the people who testified in opposition were choosing their words quite carefully, and so I don't know if I fully understand the situation. And if this is just a situation we've created by being a control state, and it's kind of unfair, then I'm all in favor of repealing it. But I remember when Wayfair moved to Bangor, their call center, and we took a tour of it, I asked one of their people if they had any warehouses, and or if it's all just like direct ship from the manufacturer. And I thought her answer was interesting. She said, yes, we support our suppliers that way, which led me to believe that maybe the suppliers owned the inventory that was sitting in those warehouses and they were just supporting them. And when we keep coming down back to this word property, I think of real estate, but I guess the inventories, the property. And I did ask a question about other states. And they said they'd be different. They would, it sounds like maybe they would be doing the exact same thing in other states, just under a private company, not state mandated or a state warehouse. So I really would be curious to know what is going on in other states, and if the technicality is state owned and it gets them off the hook, but it's very much like what goes on in other states. And I don't feel like I understand that at this point.
Right, I think that's a good question. There certainly are taxpayers who are only here who only have inventory here because of state regulatory requirements. But and I can't speak about individual taxpayers, but a lot of different companies will have a presence in Maine or in any state where they do business, because it's often is just good business to be here, to have people on the ground who can react to the local market. And if we were not a control state, I would suspect that some of these companies would be here. They are in other states. It's not clear which ones exactly, but some of them likely would be.
Representative Terry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Senator Sanborn is here, and I know some of us have seen this bill several times. I've found her walking through some of these issues might help with Representative Perry's question. I know that no other state is collecting this. I think, again, Senator Sanborn, that is, has been working on this for a long time. She may know a little bit more. If it's okay, if we can bring her
Yeah,
in.
go ahead. Welcome, Senator Sanborn.
Thanks, Senator Shipman and then Representative Terry. Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually what Mr. D'Alessandro just said, but to sort of flip it on its head a little bit, Representative Perry, if a company sells widgets and they have manufacturing outside of the state of Maine, they have their corporate headquarters outside of the state of Maine, they don't own any real property in the state of Maine, and all they do is fulfill orders from a Maine retailer, let's say. They ship their products, their widgets to the Maine retailer, and the Maine retailer sells them, then they would probably not have Nexus, and that would be a case-by-case taxpayer determination. And my understanding of the difference here, and I think I'm saying the same thing Mr. D'Alessandro is, but with a different emphasis, is that those liquor companies are doing the exact same thing as the widget manufacturer, but the way that the state has set up their business through their state monopoly, they automatically, and this is a new interpretation, but they are automatically imposing the nexus because of the bailment of the product when it arrives to fulfill those orders that are otherwise the only contact with the state of Maine. And my understanding and the research that's gone into this is that there are several other states in the country, including New Hampshire and Vermont, that use a bailment process for their state-owned liquor, and that none of them impose nexus through that specific contact with their states. So they have not taken that blanket approach for this one very specific state-controlled industry. And so Mr. D'Alessandro is exactly correct that it would require a company-by-company, taxpayer-by-taxpayer determination, just like every other industry, every other widget manufacturer, every other company that sells product in Maine. And so, I think originally MRS's testimony was that this would be creating a carve out that would make liquor have special treatment versus other types of industries. But in fact, the way that Mr. D'Alessandro just framed it, it actually has their interpretation of MRS's interpretation has actually created a carve in that prevents that taxpayer by taxpayer determination of the substantial contacts with the state of Maine that is the appropriate way under federal law for us to determine whether state income tax applies to the corporation or not. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay. Representative Perry.
Thank you for the follow-up, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator. When I listen to this, so this is the first time I've heard this bill, so I don't have any of the institutional knowledge. But I was shocked by the testimony because we privatized the liquor business and it didn't, and the supplier who bids on it for the 10-year contract, I never heard mention of where they fit into this. I mean, is there a reason why we're still even doing bailment in the state of Maine? I don't understand that fits in. Is that part of a bigger conversation, or is that something we're gonna have, that makes sense for us to have forever?
Is that a question for Mr. D'Alessandro or?
Well, or for Senator Sanborn or whoever, anyone who know, I just was surprised by the structure I heard. I figured with privatization, that the state was more hands-off.
Go ahead, Senator Sanborn.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that when we say it's a state-controlled warehouse, we really mean the warehouse of Pine State, which is the holder of the liquor contract. They're standing in the shoes of the state. And my understanding as to why bailment is still used is so that there can be a delay in the payment of for the product until a buyer is found for that product for the convenience of the state. But you're correct that it would be for the convenience or the financial security of the entity that controls the contract.
Additional questions or discussion from members of the committee? I guess I just wanted to clarify, Julie, with you, the language of the bill as presented is different than the bill we heard last session, and that it doesn't go back retroactively and do anything. It's only sort of from this point going forward from the time the bill takes effect. Is that?
I did not compare this bill word for word with the bill from last year, so I'm not 100% sure. It does provide that the exemption would be for tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2021, which is the current tax year. So
At beginning.
it's not exactly retroactive, but it's.
Okay.
Oh,
but it starts for the tax year 2021 going forward.
Yes.
I only bring that up because there's, for members of the committee that aren't aware of this, there is some pending litigation with the state and I guess a particular company on this issue regarding stuff in the past. And so, when I first heard about this bill, I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be retroactive and sort of be us putting our thumb on the scale in terms of that. I guess there was a ruling by the Maine Board of Tax Appeals and the department is appealing that, or there's some still continued pending litigation on it. Maybe Mr. D'Alessandro can speak to that, but if we pass this bill, it would only be from this point going forward. If the state is successful in that litigation, it would prohibit the state from being able to collect this revenue going forward. So that's just something to, I guess, put out there. Or to D'Alessandro.
Yes, so the bill is retroactive, but it's only retroactive 1 year at this point to January 1st, 2021. And so that was one of the comments that we had. If it's intended to be retroactive, it should have a retroactive clause. And if it's not intended to be retroactive, it should be moved to a prospective date, say January 1st, 2022. And like you said, there is ongoing litigation. You heard testimony on both sides of whether federal public law 86-272 already prevented the state from imposing an income tax in this situation. And often this committee has let that type of litigation proceed before altering the law. And the reason that can make sense is if it's true that Public Law 86-272 applies, then there's no need for this kind of legislation. MRS would, of course, follow any court order and follow federal law. And so if 86-272 applies, then there's no need to create a specific state exemption. On the other hand, if 86-272 doesn't apply, and the state can apply its income tax in this kind of situation, that could be a relevant point for the committee to consider.
Thank you for that, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Sanborn, the amendment brought forward by MRS, the way I understand it, it kind of takes away the nexus argument and puts it as a tax break or a. Do you feel that the bill should remain dealing with the nexus argument to not make it unnecessarily a tax incentive or a, how would you like to see that crafted?
Thank you, Representative Bickford. Yeah, I have not seen the MRS proposed amendment. I'm not the official sponsor of the bill because that was Senator Lucchini this time around, and he's not in the legislature anymore. So I haven't seen that draft, and I hesitate to comment on it without seeing the language. But I guess I would say that I don't accept that it's legal for MRS to collect the tax in the first place under current law or under federal law. But I mean, that's a question for the courts. But I think the question for the legislature is whether we think it's appropriate to collect it as a matter of policy going forward as we define nexus. And I don't think that's a tax exemption. I think that's a clarification of intent. So I think that answers your question, Representative Bickford. And I think the way that the bill has been crafted is keeps to that appropriate legislative intent of giving MRS the direction that we can and should do as a legislature as to what the words in statute mean.
Thank you, Senator. And Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion ought to pass as originally crafted with no amendment except possibly a fiscal note.
So you have a motion to ought to pass as amended, seconded by Representative Terry.
Can I actually ask a quick question of Representative Bickford before we
Yeah.
move any further?
Yeah, go ahead.
Representative Bickford, are you okay with moving the date to 1/22? And Senator Sanborn, are you okay with that date as well?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well, so that way
Yeah.
it's clear it's not retroactive because of the pending case. Mr. D'Alessandro, if we pass this bill, would it be a loss of revenue to the state? Or will it not really matter because it's not being collected right now, or?
Yes, it is being collected right now, and there would be a loss of revenue to the state.
You know
There
how
was
much
a similar bill last session, the 129th, and there was that one was retroactive, and there was estimated revenue loss on that bill. We have not performed one for this bill, but there would be a revenue loss.
Do you know roughly how much that would be, or you're not really sure?
I don't have that information at this time. We know we haven't gone through the analysis for each company to see what other connections there are with the state, and that would have to be done before we would really know how much it would cost.
Okay. Representative Bickford, you got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, depending on how that court case plays out, if it's found to not be legal to charge them tax, then there will be no fiscal note on this. And if it's found that the state is proper in doing what they're doing, then there will be a fiscal note. So fiscal note can't be assumed until that case has done its appeals.
Right, but that's not likely to happen before the fiscal note needs to be generated because that litigation is going to take a while,
Yeah.
so.
So currently, what's been adjudicated so far is that Maine can't charge them an income tax due to nexus. So if that is understood now, until the appeals are done, there's not going to be a fiscal note on this.
Well, that's maybe in theory. I don't know.
No, there can't be.
Yeah, I mean, we're not the ones who decide, I guess, on the fiscal note. So I'm surprised if there wasn't a fiscal note. I'm sure there will be one, but I mean, that doesn't impact how I feel. I mean, if everybody wants to pass the bill, I'm I guess okay with that, especially where it's not retroactive. I did have some concern about that because I didn't want to inject ourselves into a court case that's still pending, which is for stuff in the past, I guess. So I don't know. It seems like, go ahead, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still don't feel like I know everything I'd like to. It does sound like we are warehousing their stuff, and that's a benefit. And without the bailment, they may need their own warehouse. And I mean, I'm willing to send it down to a probes and let them have their day down there. But from Mr. D'Alessandro, years ago, I think multi-state corporations, it was weighted between property, employees and sales. And over time, we changed it until we got to, as far as I know, right now, single sales, multi-state. If under the, where it was weighted before with property and employees, would this nexus even be in question?
Yes, so the nexus, there are several steps. And the first is nexus. Are there sufficient connections with the state in order to justify state taxing? And that threshold question is a question of federal law. And it can be property in the state and it can be other connections. It can happen even if there is no property in the state. We had there were sales tax questions for a number of years that were finally resolved with Wayfair, in which states were getting, or companies had a competitive advantage selling into the state, but had no property here. And so there's first that threshold question. There's Public Law 86-272, which is federal law. It's similar to the nexus question, but it is distinct, and it can prevent a state taxing in certain situations. And then there's a question of how much taxes actually due. And that's where you would have your property or payroll factors or your sales factors. And so that is distinct.
So Mr. D'Alessandro, if we didn't want it to be retroactive at all, wouldn't we want the date to take effect when the bill becomes law, as opposed to even January 2022? Because we're already into February now, and it wouldn't take effect till, even if it's passed as an emergency, till we adjourn, right?
Well, I think you would want it not to reach into prior tax years, and then you would want it to align with tax years. And so if you want a prospective bill, January 1st, 2022 is a reasonable choice. And if you want to make sure it's prospective only and not affecting prior years and the prior litigation, I think that you would want to remove the words saying that it's a clarification. When you have a legislature passes a bill suggesting that it's clarifying existing law, courts will look at that to see what, and will at least ask the question of whether that's meant to affect those prior tax years or not. If you really want it just going forward, then you want it to create a new nexus requirement or a new exemption requirement, and not be framed as clarifying what law is actually still there.
So, I mean, I know that the department's against the bill, but you're suggesting that if we don't want it to be retroactive, that January 2022 will accomplish that, which is my concern. I don't want it to be retroactive. And then secondly, to remove the language about clarifying.
Yes.
As well, I definitely don't want us to be weighing in on pending litigation. So that was my concern with this bill. And so the person, Representative Bickford, you made the motion. Are you okay with removing the language about it being a clarification? You're on mute, Representative Bickford. You're on mute, Representative Bickford. We can't hear you.
I do believe that should stay as clarification, but you can please check with Senator Sanborn to make sure what the intent was.
So, Senator Sanborn.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that if either way, the courts could use this bill. And so if we say this is only going forward and this is a brand new requirement, then we've just helped MRS in their appeal. And that's not the intent of this committee, I don't believe either. And certainly not the tenor of the conversations that I've had with members of this committee. So I would caution the committee that taking out the clarification language may not reflect actually the discussion that the committee has had about what the substance is here.
I would rather leave that clarification.
We're not saying that it's new. We're just taking out the word clarification, taking out that word, so that we're not injecting ourselves in. We're not talking about the past. We're talking about January 22 going forward, and leaving the question about the past for the courts to decide based on court cases and federal law and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't feel comfortable voting on something that could be applied retroactively or used to weigh in on a lawsuit. I mean, I really don't want to do that. I just don't feel comfortable with that myself. But Representative Perry.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, is it our intention? Is it this bill's intention to put our thumb on the scale in a court case? And if with either language, can we put in the summary or something that we don't intend, that this, what we have done is not intended to influence anything that's going on in court? I don't know if that's something that's done or not.
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clarifying in this bill, this case, my understanding is, has already been heard. There's already been a determination. If MRS decides to appeal that, what we do now is not going to affect anything in the past. So if we're clarifying now, which we should be doing, then I'm good with the way it is.
I mean, if we remove the word clarification and pass the bill, we're saying, at least from this point forward, this is how we want to do things, you know?
We're making a tax exemption. We're making a tax exemption.
Yeah.
If we don't leave the clarification language in. And I'm not prepared to make it as a tax exemption. My motion is not to make a tax exemption. My motion is to clarify the language.
Well, then we're definitely, then we're definitely putting our thumb on the scale, and that makes, at least I'm uncomfortable with that. I think Representative Perry's uncomfortable with that. I mean, if you want to keep the clarification language in there, I'd probably vote against that motion and have ought to pass as amended with removal of the clarification language would be what I would want to vote for, because I don't want to get involved in something that's happened in the past over the last few years. That's, yes, they've been a ruling and there's an appeal, and that has not been resolved. And I can't think of any legislation in my 12 years in the legislature where we've passed something that did have an impact on some pending litigation, when we typically try to stay away from that. So I don't know if you're willing to take that out or not, but Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we modernize the language rather than clarifying the language? Would that settle things?
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill that we're hearing right now, and what we're doing is we are clarifying that language, not for years prior. We're clarifying the language as of January 1st, 2022. That should have no impact on any litigation that's going on right now. You can't take a bill that we passed next year and deal with the problem we had last year. It just doesn't work that way. In my mind, I mean, I got a simple mind, so.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we just heard from Mr. D'Alessandro. I mean, I know the department has their position on the bill and they've been honest about that, and they're involved in litigation, and I totally understand that. But his opinion was, if you don't want to weigh in on the lawsuit, remove clarification. If you don't want to be retroactive, set January 2022. I mean, I trust him at his word. I mean, he comes to our committee all the time and provides us information. He's been quite upfront about their position on it. And I don't think that removing the word clarification is going to have any impact on the lawsuit. But, I mean, if we leave it in, I think it could. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to weigh in. I don't want to be putting ourselves in having what we pass here be used in a way in some kind of court case for something from the past that's still pending. Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern is, while I have utmost respect for Mr. D'Alessandro, he does have a biased opinion on this. So he is going to want the wording to weigh on MRS's side. If we go with his language, that will swing the scales in a different way, won't it?
I don't think it will, because there's already been a ruling in the Board of Court Appeals. And I mean, several people have told individual committee members in conversations that they think it's highly unlikely that that case is going to be successful. So I don't think that if we remove the word clarification that we're going to be helping out the MRS side of that lawsuit. But by keeping it in there, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather be silent on it and let the courts rule the way they're going to rule.
And leaving it in is not going to weigh on the scales either, then, is the argument against what you just said.
I mean, clarification implies that there's something that was unclear in the past, and that we're, I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with the word clarification. Representative Terry.
Perry, right? Perry, I think was
Oh,
first.
yeah, go ahead, Representative Terry.
Oh, yeah, be quick. I mean, I guess I'm willing to vote for it with the way it is. I mean, that is a word, the governor who has to sign the bill. I mean, that's seems to be her position through the department, not wanting that word. It maybe makes it a tougher challenge to get it signed. And I mean, that's what everyone wants. I'll go for it.
Representative Terry.
I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here, that our job in this committee is not to weigh in on anything having to do with the courts. Our job is to create policy for our fellow citizens. And for me, the policy for the state is in the direction of making sure that we are the ones that are writing the policy, that we are the ones that are directing policy, and not the court or anybody else for that matter. That it's our job to write the policy. And in my opinion, as it was 2 years ago, this is the right policy for the state. And 2 years ago, there was no court case, or there was no court decision anyway, or Board of Tax Appeals decision. It was still, it was in process at the time, and we all voted then to make this clarification. So again, policy is what we're looking at here, not necessarily, not pending court cases.
Senator Sanborn.
Thank you, Senator Chipman. I apologize for weighing in at this late point in the committee discussion, but I was just going to suggest that perhaps you could leave the language of the bill as it is, because I do think it's a clarification rather than a new tax exemption, as Representative Bickford has said. But you could put in unallocated language that says something like, nothing in this bill is intended to, indicate prior legislative intent or, have an impact on pending court cases or that kind of thing. Just so that the existence of the bill then, I believe, really couldn't even be brought into the discussion of the court case in a retroactive way on either side, either in MRS's favor or in the taxpayer's favor.
Yeah, that would be, I'd feel more comfortable about that. Do you, Mr. D'Alessandro, is that your understanding, if we had some unallocated language like that, that it wouldn't have an impact on the court case?
I think that would be a good addition.
So if we keep the bill the way it is with the clarification language, but have an unallocated language that Julie could draft that makes it clear that it's not intended to take a position on anything prior. Okay, Representative Bickford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to offer that amendment that Senator Sanborn brought up about the intent. Yes.
About the intent. Yeah, it's not intended to influence
Correct.
Anything previous. So you're clear on that, Julie?
I'm clear on the intent, and I will hope to get the language correctly. You'll have a chance to review it, or if you want me to bring it back to on a particular date, I can do that as well, rather than waiting to a formal final review.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can look at that at a future meeting once it's drafted, but as long as you're clear on what Senator Sanborn just outlined and you don't have any questions or anything like that.
I think so.
Okay.
I could also check in with her and make sure that I've gotten her intent correctly.
Great. Any further committee discussion? Seeing none, we've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify.
Thank you.
That's unanimous of all members present. So that motion carries. So we'll close the work session on LD 1937, which I believe is our final bill today for work sessions. Do you have any, thanks for being with us, Senator Sanborn. Good to see you. Do you have anything for us, Julie, we should know about?
Yes, I do. We mentioned before briefly the budget hearings that will be underway with regard to the supplemental budget. The notice of the timing of those hearings has just come out this morning, and the taxation committee provisions are scheduled for next Wednesday, March 2nd. And the deadline for reporting back to the appropriations committee is Friday, March 18th. I have been in the process of putting together a chart of the provisions for the taxation committee, and along with the pages from the proposed supplemental budget, and I will have a package ready for you. I figure where you're going to be here tomorrow for our House and Senate sessions, that I will leave that down in the taxation committee room for you. If anyone's not going to be here tomorrow, let me know and we can put it in the mail to you. But you would at least, for this particular thing for the budget, have paper versions of it as opposed to just an electronic version, which I can also send electronically. So we will leave copies down with Lena in the taxation committee room. And if you stop by, you can pick them up tomorrow. And let me know if you want us to put them in the snail mail to you.
So we're scheduled to be in front of the appropriations committee in the inner horseshoe, so to speak, or at least through Zoom next Wednesday.
Yes, at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. And if members want to come to Augusta, I guess are they allowing people in the room in the inner horseshoe, or is it exclusively by Zoom? Do you know?
I think it's going to be exclusively by Zoom, but I did not think to raise that question. So I'm pretty sure that committees are still all required to meet remotely by Zoom, but I will definitely check and send you all an email letting you know whether will be Zoom or whether in-person options are available.
Yeah, I guess for now we'll assume it's by Zoom. I know some committees are starting to use the hybrid model, so I wasn't sure if that was one of them. But unless we hear from you, we'll assume it's by Zoom, and we'll get an invitation from the clerk of the appropriations committee for that next Wednesday. You said at 10 o'clock. Is that the time?
No, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. I'm sorry, 1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock p.m. next Wednesday. Okay. Anything else for us?
No.
Okay.
I just want to throw
go
out there, ask Lena, actually, do you need signatures from folks? Will you need signatures from folks tomorrow is what I meant to ask.
Yes, for the ones that are absent today.
Yep.
And we got an email that no blanket approvals anymore. So
No
I'll have to
blanket
get,
approvals.
to report bills out. That's
Excellent.
just free.
So when you pick up your paperwork tomorrow, check in with Lena and see if there's anything that you need to vote on.
I'll have them all here ready to go. So
Yeah, if everybody can stop down and see Lena tomorrow. Well, I guess we're all set to adjourn. So we'll see everybody tomorrow in session and Thursday morning at 9 o'clock here. All right. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.